I want to tell a little story about something that happened to me about maybe close to 30 years ago that was something that contributed to my awakening quite a bit. And it also is extremely helpful for people that are suffering from the grief of a loved one dying. Um, this has to do with my father. And in the process of his dying, I, um, I stopped, I had a film company and I stopped accepting new jobs to be with him while he was dying, to help him in this process and physically to take care of him. I figured, well, this is the last time I'm going to see him. I should do that. And so I did. I didn't think it would take a year. I thought it would be more like a month or so, but it did take a much longer time. And he was very conflicted in his experience with death. In one way, he wanted it to hurry up and get over with. And another part of him, equally, he was terrified of it. So there was this inner war going on with him. And I helped him a lot with that because I didn't have a fear of death at that time. And, um, and that sort of relaxed him from that fear part of it. And that was wonderful, really, to spend time with him. But what I wanted to talk about was the moment that he died, the moment that he physically died. In that moment, I was with him, and it felt like it felt like his spirit had entered me. That's what I thought of it as somehow. And I started being really interested in the things he was interested in. I was like nature too, but not as much as he did. And so I was totally doing what he did, reading the books that he read and doing the things that he did. I just found it sort of taken over my life to some degree. And I thought that was interesting. And because he had kind of entered me, I didn't feel any grief from his passing. I felt him in me, as me. And later I realized that that was a mistake, that that wasn't really what happened. What had happened was during the time he was alive, his physical body, I felt that I was separate from him because there was a physical body here and a physical body there. And I felt that unless I was with him physically or talking to him on the phone, I was separate from him. This is what the senses tell us. This is what our conditioning tells us, that we're separate from other beings. And when he physically died and his body was no longer alive, even in the moment there was a body, but it was not a living body. That illusion of separation disappeared. And I realized that I was never separate from him. I was never separate from him. Whether I saw him, whether I was 3,000 miles away from him, whether I hadn't seen him in years, it didn't matter. I was totally not separate from him at all. And his physical dying made that clear to me. And over time, I realized that that was true for everyone and everything, that I was not separate from anything, from the earth, from any being, from insects, animals, people, that there was no separation at all. And that was, I think, the beginning of this kind of a realization. I didn't understand it that way then. I thought his spirit had entered me. That was my first feeling. And then after a few weeks, I realized, no, that's not it. I was never separate from him. And then over time, that expanded to everything and everyone. But that was the beginning of it. And a lot of people feel some grief when a loved one dies because they think that they're gone. They think something has left them and they'll never see them again. Or they think when they die in heaven, they'll see them again or something. But that's not true. We've never been separate. We've never been separate from a loved one who dies. They're in us, of course. They're in our physical DNA and everything that we've learned from them. And far beyond that, We're just not separate. We're just not separate. Not to anything, not to anyone. So over time, this realization dissolved my experience of the difference between living and dead, or the worlds of the living and the world of the dead, whatever we want to call that. That separation also dissolved. So just as much after someone has passed, they're just as present to me, not just my father or people that I've known, but people I've never met. So a lot of people would come to me and say, can you get in touch with my mother? Can you get in touch with, my father who died? Can you get in touch with, different people who had died, a husband or a wife? And for some reason, I always can, because I don't experience that separation. I can't really explain it. It's just that there is no separation. And in what we call the afterlife, whatever that is not what we think it is at all. There's just no separation. That's the way to understand it. There are individual attributes and aspects that last for a particular period of time after somebody dies. You can sense that, experience that in you, in the universe, basically, whatever. It's just everywhere. And over time, sometimes those attributes, well, they usually do, they usually fade like a grain of salt dissolving in the ocean. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes they last much longer before dissolving. That's the case for me with Ramana Maharshi. He died quite a few years ago, but he's completely present to me. Why? I don't know. I'm grateful for it, but so in this non-separation, the world is nothing like we think it is. Reality is nothing like we think it is, because our minds are conditioned to see separation, to experience separation, even to the fact of saying, like, I'm a soul, and after I die, I will go on as a soul. That's also separation. It isn't really like that. It isn't like that, and there's really nothing that we can say about it. It's beyond our thinking, beyond our thoughts. It's nothing like we think it is. Nothing like I think it is. I just stopped making concepts about it or believing them, because I experienced something that's more than thought. And a lot of that's what this transmission is, really. It's just more than thought. It's beyond thought. There is something here that's far more than thought. And the more we think we understand it, the less we do. It's okay to let go of thought and experience what's here that's not thought, that's more than thought, because that's what's real. It's okay to have thoughts and use thoughts to function in the world and communicate with people, and all that stuff is wonderful and useful. But there's reality that's far beyond that, and that we can directly experience by letting go of thought. That's how we experience this energy, which is always here. And that's how we directly experience that there is no separation anywhere. when that individual attribute or aspect dissolves into the vast infinite ocean, we realize there is just ocean. And everything is this, really. And of course, when I say ocean, I mean something that the mind cannot conceive of. It's just an analogy, a pointer. Thank you for letting me share this because it's so useful for people that experience grief when a loved one dies, and that happens so often. So many people come to me with this. And just to experience a moment of this, they have no more suffering. They know it's true. They experience this infinite peace and love, because this is the source of love. As Ramana said when he was dying, people were grieving him leaving. They said, "Where could I go?" That points to the same thing. There is no separation. Everything is always here. Everyone is always here. And physical death doesn't change that at all. It may be harder for us to accept that people that we don't love, who have passed or are alive now, they're also part of us. We're not separate from them either. It's not a way of dividing people that we love and don't love, and the people we love are part of us, and the ones we don't love are not. No, it's everything, everyone, every species, every person. What makes it easier is when we accept that, we open up into the greater truth where it all sends to dissolve into this vast infinite ocean that includes everything, that is everything. And then the individual attributes tend to fade from our attention as it opens to this vast totality, this infinite allness. This is the source of everything that exists. This is why there's no separation, why separation cannot actually exist in reality, even though our senses perceive it and our conditioning mind believes it and sees it. It doesn't really exist. Because most people don't experience this. This is an important teaching to experience it. And then we can use the individual attributes and the separation and the world of form and energy and all of that. We won't forget about that. But we experience something more, something far more, the source of all of it, the inconceivable source of all of it. Where we experience that we are not separate from anything, anyone, and nothing is separate from anything or anyone. The more we naturally open to this source. As I've said before, this energy is not just in me, it's everywhere. It's in you, it's all around you. You can learn this from Qigong and Tai Chi and Asian medicine, that we're living in an infinite ocean of energy. In fact, energy is what makes these bodies, and all form is made of energy. Einstein was very clear about this, and it just is true. We can feel that when we feel the energy. This is how the energy healing works. It heals physical matter because the physical matter is energy. It's made of energy. Everything is. So when you feel this transmission, you're feeling the energy that's everywhere and already in you. And because in reality there is no inside or outside, it's just everywhere, in you, all around you. And that's why you feel it. Wherever you are in the world, that's why this is a Zoom call. I'm in Arizona. You're in Santa Barbara and Montana, in India, Australia, anywhere in the world. It's the same energy. And the reason that it works from a video that's done years ago, watching it years later, it's the same energy. That's why you can access it from a video that's done years ago. It wouldn't make any sense that I could transmit energy on a video and then years later someone could watch it and feel that energy. It wouldn't make any sense if that was what happened. No, the energy is already in you, always has been. This just reminds you, asks you to pay attention, to feel it. Ramana seems to agree with that. Sometimes there's a little inner dialogue occasionally with Ramana. Usually he says, I wouldn't have said it that way, but it's fine. But this he seemed to like. Mostly my experience is the samadhi, just the pure totality, the allness, without any differentiation or individualization or attributes or none of that. Just the whole thing. All beings, all energy, all everything, all at once. Thank you, my friends.